The Upshot is presented by Pound Disc Golf, makers of the best bags in the sport. Go to PoundDiscGolf.com to learn more about their innovative design and when you can get your hands on their next custom drop. And by Skybreed Discs, a top online disc retailer with all of the modern amenities. Pictures of every disc on the website, box shipping for every disc so nothing gets messed up in transit, very low flat rate shipping with free shipping over $50 orders. If you use code WORLDS21, you'll get 10% off of your order, and they're a preferred partner of Ledgestone and the Great Lakes Open. They've got a ton of inventory. Go check it out, skybreeddiscs.com. Welcome to The Upshot, Multi-World Disc Golf's podcast about the latest in the disc golf world. I am the publisher, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me is Josh Mansfield. And Josh, we're through 2 rounds of action at the Pro World Championships in Utah. And it's getting real interesting. I'm going to be honest, it's getting real interesting.
It's so close right now on the MPO side. And there are some names that we expected up there. There are some names who we expected up there who are not. And then there is Emerson World's Whisperer Keith sitting atop the rankings.
The World's Whisperer cannot be stopped. This man just shot a 10 under on the fort. Honestly, I know he won Utah Open. And I know he is the World's Whisperer. And yet I'm still surprised by how well he played today.
Absolutely. I mean, neither of us had him in our top 5, which really seems like a mistake now. It's crazy. It's crazy what this guy manages to do year in. I mean, for the past 2 Worlds, it's crazy.
Okay, I want to point this out, all right?
Okay.
He did not miss a putt until hole 14. And that included 5 circle 2 putts. I literally was watching on UDisc. He, at one point, had not missed a putt, and his average putt length, which includes all of your putts, was 30 feet. I'm not kidding. And this guy was on absolute fire. He was on total fire. And he has a missed C2 putt on hole 11, which he actually didn't really have a good look, and he was just laying up. So I guess you can call that a missed putt if you want, but I mean, he was laying up. So he finally misses one on 14, and then he did miss an inside the circle putt on 16. But 88% from circle 1, 71% from circle 2, had a string of 6 straight birdies, and not a lot of players did that. Literally maybe no players did that besides Emerson Keith today. He was on fire.
Yeah, he was. And he just looked comfortable during the round. It looked like he was still playing the Utah Open. And you could see other guys getting notably frustrated. A couple of examples in there that we could talk about. But Emerson Keith, even when he kind of cooled off a little bit in the back 4 or 5, he still looked smooth. He still looked confident. Upset, for sure, by his inside circle miss on 16, but still always in control.
And, honestly, I don't know what it is, because it's not like you just say it's the courses setting up great for Emerson Keith, because part of the reason he was playing so well is because all of a sudden his putter is rip-roaring hot. So, I mean, really what it is that he's the World's Whisperer. Like, let's be honest with ourselves. There's something about this getting to this time of year. I don't know if he's planning his season. Maybe it's random luck. It's only been 2 times, but still, it's pretty amazing to see somebody who no one expects to be playing well at the World Championships be up there in 2019 and then do it again in 2021. And, next year it's going to be a storyline. Like, how high is Emerson Keith going to finish? So here's the question, Josh. Can he win this thing?
There's still a lot of golf to play. And we talked a little bit about kind of what the scoring is going to look like later and how much the separation is going to be. And our number that you gave us was 3 strokes. But we have 2 people who've pulled ahead, Emerson Keith and Calvin Heimberg, both at 18 under, tied for first. After that, though, we have a huge log jam at 15 under par. Paul Macbeth, James Conrad, Kayla Viska, Mason Ford, Kevin Jones, Nate Sexton, Ricky Wysocki. Every one of those guys are going to be knocking on the door. And if Emerson Keith slips up and goes cool for just a little while, any of them are going to be ready to push. And that's not even including Calvin, who's tied up there with him. You got a couple more names at 4 under. Chris Dickerson, Ezra Aderhold, Greg Barsby, all those guys tied into the top 10 right now. And I think Emerson Keith really, he's got to keep his foot to the pedal if he's going to have a chance at contention when it comes day 5, because all these guys are too close right now. One double bogey and Emerson Keith is right back down with that logjam.
It's pretty amazing. I mean, you just ran down the numbers there. Some separation for Keith and for Calvin Heimberg. Heimberg doing things in what felt like a little bit more sustainable of a way. He shot 9 under today. It was one shot worse than Keith. He only made 1 circle 2 putt. He had a lot of very nice tee shots, and he made some good putts, but a lot of his birdie looks were from 15 feet, inside of 20. He did have a 70-foot big throw-in on 5, and hit a crazy putt on hole 1. You can check that out on our social media channels. Somehow got the disc through all of the obstacles, the trees. You could barely see the basket, and he floated it up and in from about 50 feet. Calvin Heimberg, I know how well Keith played today, but I think if you look at and you laid the odds out right now, given that he's got 3 strokes over Macbeth and Wysocki and all the names you mentioned at 15 under, Calvin Heimberg's got to be the favorite to win his first World Championship.
I completely agree. And like you said, I think the best way to describe Calvin Heimberg's tournament is sustainable. When your average putt is 17 feet, means his tee shots are excellent. They're dialed in. That demonstrates confidence, and over time, as the pressure continues to mount, those huge circle 1 and circle 2 putting numbers that we're seeing right now just aren't going to be the case. It takes mental fortitude to putt hole after hole after hole at long distances, and to do that for 5 days is mentally exhausting. And I think the fact that Calvin Heimberg doesn't have to do that means that come Saturday, he's going to be the one who's feeling the best, feeling the least amount of stress, and looking in the best position to push, as of we can look at it right now.
Well, let's hear from Calvin Heimberg. I got a chance to catch up with him after the round. Here's Calvin after his 9 under, putting him in a tie for first place. Tie for the lead?
Yep.
How do you feel about the way you played these first 2 rounds, as now you've seen both courses?
I feel pretty good. I've been throwing the disc fairly well, and my putt feels better than it has the past month. So that's always a lot nicer, walking up on the putting green when you have a lot more confidence in yourself and your abilities to make it.
Stacked up, and I heard you in the press conference, you talked about how there wasn't necessarily going to be a big extra advantage for players like you, 1050 rated.
Yeah.
And we've seen scores pretty stacked up. I mean, a little bit of separation for you and Emerson right now, but tons of people at 15, tons of people at 14.
Yeah.
What do you attribute that to?
Courses are shorter. When you get these tight wooded courses, there's going to be a lot of scrambling, so just the variance of scores is a lot higher, I feel like. And then Mulligan's is a golf course, but distance doesn't really help you out there either. It's not a long golf course. There's a couple par 3s where distance can help, but even then, if the wind's not right, a distance thrower is probably, their odds of getting it's pretty low too. So I think all the holes out here are pretty open to most players, so it's really just whoever can keep it clean and make their putts.
What do you think about this Fort course?
It's not my favorite, but I like it more than Mulligan's. I think they've done a great job from where I saw it 2 years ago when I played Utah Open in 2019. There's still I just feel like there's some short holes out here that I just don't feel like are Worlds worthy. As a whole, I think there just aren't enough par 4s and 5s out here on both of these Worlds courses for me to really feel like it's really challenging and being a major. But we're all out here playing it. We all know Worlds is on the line here, and we're competing for a world title.
All right, so let's talk about some other players up here, and I kind of want to just run down some of the top names and look where they are and assess how they're playing so far at Worlds. And why don't we start with Ricky Wysocki. Wysocki coming in at 15 under par after just a so-so 5 under round today. Only had 1 bogey, but missed out on a lot of birdie opportunities. Missed a couple more putts than you expect to see from Wysocki, and just didn't look totally comfortable out there on the fort.
His circle one putting was pretty close to what it was at Mulligan's. I think Mulligan's was 75%. Today it was 78%. The difference, though, is at Mulligan's, the open fairways, the open greens, he was at 100% fairway hits, and here at the fort, it's 79% fairway hits. So there's the difference right there. And Ricky only was 2 under through the front 9, and that's just behind the pace where a lot of the guys are finding their scoring between holes 5 to 10, really, or where a lot of birdies are coming, and then in the back half. So, Ricky needs a couple more birdies, but he did well enough at Mulligan's that he's right up there still in contention in that log jam. But like you said, got to turn up the putter a little bit.
How about Paul McBeth? I ran into some folks right off the 18th green at the fort today, and they came over and they said, "Can you see who just made a push and is suddenly back in the mix?" And yeah, it was Paul McBeth. After really just not doing all that much at the beginning of his round, only had 2 birdies through hole 7, ends up finishing with an 8 under round, one of the best of the day, and he's right back up there tied for 3rd. Do you like where he is position-wise and, the way that he's playing?
I do, and I think the concern is that his marks, the 7 under and 8 under at Mulligan's and Fort, are good, but they're not the pace, either one, of what Emerson Keith and Calvin Heimberg put at both of them. Now, he is starting to challenge, Ricky's 5 under par was just not sufficient at the Fort, and that's going to have to change. And Ricky's proven that it can, but Paul needs to demonstrate a little bit better of a round at Mulligan's tomorrow, I think, if he is going to continue to maintain that position, because otherwise, if Calvin or Emerson have that kind of really good round again, proving that they can do both, I think then you're going to start to see even more score separation. If he shoots 7 under at Mulligan's again, that means Calvin Heimberg pulls ahead and will be 5 strokes difference if he shoots his 9 under at Mulligan's again.
Eagle McMahon shot a 10-19 rated round today. He's at 9 under par for the tournament. That's got him in 23rd place. So many expectations on Eagle coming into this weekend. Your pick and many people's pick to win this tournament. And is this another case of Eagle getting, bit by the woods?
It sure looks like
that was a heavy side. That right there, Josh. That was real heavy.
I think I went against my gut when I picked Eagle to get the win. And I don't want to say he's out of it, but unless he turns around and decides to shoot, I don't even know if 10 under par the last 3 days is going to be sufficient at this point. I really don't think it will be.
There's just so many great players in front of him. We were talking about this on the show yesterday. You got to be able to make that push.
Yeah. So I think Eagle can salvage a decent finish, top 10 finish. Maybe top 5 if he really works it. I dare say, though, that I think Eagle might be outside of the ability to contend for the win, though, come Saturday.
Well, we'll have to see what happens. How about Chris Dickerson? Didn't, shoot the best round yesterday, but bounced back with a 1073 rated 54 today, and he's at 14 under, so that's 4 shots off the lead, 1 shot off the big pack of players. Tied for 3rd. I think if you're a Dickerson fan, you got to feel pretty good about what you saw from him today. If you take a look at the stats, he really started to get it going. The putter hitting, he was finding the green, some park some holes, lots of circle 1 in regulation. He found the green on 90% of holes, and that's tough to do out at the fort. No bogeys. I think if Dickerson can pick it up on Mulligan's, which I certainly think that he can play a lot better than he did in round 1, he's going to be pushing back up. He's right now tied for 10th. I think we'll see him up in the top 5 by the end of Friday afternoon.
I think that's a real possibility. I think those 3 guys sitting at tied for 10th, 14 under, Chris Dickerson, Ezra Aderhold, and Greg Barsby, they did really pretty well today. Greg Barsby 6 under, not great, but 8 under at Mulligan's wasn't exceptional either. It was decent. So they played well today. For Dickerson, tied for second best round with Calvin at 9 under par. I think tomorrow, though, is make it or break it for those three. I think the guys all tied at third are close enough. There's only two guys ahead of them, at the 18 under. They still are in it. They can play okay at Mulligan's and then have 2 rounds at the fort to really make their push. I'm not worried about them. I think the Dickerson, Aderhold, and Barsby, though, were going to find themselves too far behind leaders if they don't pick it up tomorrow. So I think Chris Dickerson's world's chances rely on him stepping it up at Mulligan's.
Mason Ford, 1027 rated. He's a 15 under. I mean, Emerson Keith's actually rated lower than Mason Ford, which makes the fact that he's, tied for the lead of this tournament even more impressive. But I think given what I saw in 2019, the fact that he won the Utah Open maybe doesn't feel like as much of a surprise as Mason Ford. So, another one of those, the Texas boys. He's from Texas as well. They got it going on. And just 2 really solid rounds.
Yeah. He is also one I would say is playing sustainable. He's got bogeys. He's got a lot of birdies. 8 under Mulligan, 7 under the fort. Both of those they're good numbers. They're enough to keep him up there. Turn it up just a little bit, and he could very well see himself pushing for up to the podium, top 5 finish come Saturday.
And then other notables, how about James Conrad? He had the highlight of the day.
Yes. With that, Maple Hill Entropy again. The 2019 Maple Hill Entropy that he aced with De La at. Hits it again at Utah Open. Unfortunately, he takes the bogey right after. But, it was exciting. And he's still sitting, I think, really comfortable at third. Again, James Conrad, I think a pretty sustainable, I don't know about the ace, but other than that, pretty sustainable play. And just feels like James is comfortable there. And I think he missed a couple putts that James doesn't really miss. So it looks like he was undercommitting a little bit. I think if he starts to commit to those putts just a touch more, you might see his percentage go up, which is crazy considering he shot 88 and 50.
Tell me that I'm wrong about what I said in the preview. You have to putt to win this tournament more than at any tournament we've seen this year, and it really feels like that. I mean, Emerson Keith is at the top of the leaderboard because he's been putting lights out. And not that he's not a good player off the tee. He's doing fine. But, I'm pulling up the strokes gained because I want to look at it. He gained 4.6 strokes at the fort today on the green. 4.6 against this great field. Amazing. Calvin Heimberg really did his damage more off the tee. He was second, tied for first, actually, with Matt Oram in strokes gained tee to green. And so I think we're gonna continue to see that because, especially being out at the fort, there's just so many holes where you throw a good shot. It's like as long as you hit the gap, you're gonna be in the mix, and it's just a question of how do the trees bounce your disc around. Are you going to be inside circle 1? Are you going to be inside circle 2? And if you make your putts, you're going to have a chance to win the World Championship. It could get a little crazy down the stretch.
Yeah. Here's my question for you. Do you think Ricky's today, strokes gained putting was 0. Perfect even. No gain, none lost. Do you think that's sustainable? And do you think we should expect Ricky to change that come next round?
You look at the numbers, it's sort of interesting that's how it came out because he was 25% from circle 2, 78% from circle 1X. I feel like 25% from circle 2 is better than, it's not amazing by Ricky's standards, but it's certainly not bad. It's going to be among the better players. I think he's just got to do a little bit. He missed one. I was watching the broadcast. He just doinked one from 15 feet off the top of the cage. And I feel like you got to clean those up if you're Ricky Wysocki. I think he's playing fine. He's just got to play that much better if he wants to win his third, because there's just no room for those strokes out here, given that he's not going to be able to make up a lot of ground like at Mulligan's. His skills are, everybody's got the skills. You just have to throw it to the basket and not go in the sand trap. I mean, it's a straightforward situation, but it means that, his unbelievable forehand, his great distance, some of the things that really separate him, it's hard to find that separation. And we heard it from Calvin in the interview. So I think, 78% and 75% in round one, that's not good enough. That's just not good enough. It's only a couple strokes, but that's the difference right now. And you talked yesterday, by the way, we talked about, the Macbeth 3-stroke swing. Well, he's 3 strokes back of the lead right now. So,
and that's where he was yesterday. I mean, he's not far off the pace, but like you talked about, some of those Macbeth skills just aren't as potent here. And so I hope we'll see how it keeps going. I think he'll stay in the mix. I think the fact that staying within 3 strokes kept you in third now as opposed to 19th was a big point here, but I'm interested to see what happens at Mulligan's tomorrow.
A couple other notes, and we're going to talk some FPO in just a second. I got some quotes from Kevin Jones as well. Here's a quick couple of thoughts from Kevin Jones. He's tied for third as well after shooting a 57 today, 1053 rated. Here's KJ USA. So tied for third, you're 15 under, 3 shots back. How would you assess today, or I guess maybe even really looking at the first 2 rounds since we've seen both courses now?
Yeah, well, playing at the Fort, it's a really wooded course, so it's just really important to take everything that's given to you because you never know what kind of tree kicks you're going to have out here. So a lot of course management, a lot of scrapping, and then you got to make some putts as well, and I feel like I did a pretty good job of that.
When you look at this, the leaderboard, I mean, obviously you've got 2 people up at 18, but otherwise it's stacked up 15, 14, 13. Why do you think there's less separation than we tend to see at events these days?
I think that's a good question. I think a lot of it has to do with the competition, and people are out here to play good. They're managing these courses a lot better than they have in the past. And so if you want to separate yourself from the pack, there's also more people as well. But if you want to separate yourself from the pack, you have to shoot 10, 60, 70, 80 in order to do that because everybody else is shooting around 10, 30, 10, 40, no problem.
What do you think, besides obviously shooting a highly rated round, what's it going to take to separate over these next 3 days?
It's going to take being really clean. It's going to take a couple huge birdie streaks, more than a couple huge birdie streaks. You're going to have to stay solid around the green, and you can't have multiple bogeys in a row.
And then Adam Hammes, he's at 12 under, tied for 13th. And he had one of the crazier sequences today where he threw a putt, maybe 20 feet, hit it pretty much dead center, and
Perfect
spit
putt.
out. Perfect putt. And
It was perfect. Yeah.
It really was. And we actually saw Paige Pierce have a brutal spit out as well. But hers, you could argue, was with a lot of pace and too high. And it got unlucky to get spit out and still was dead center chains, but Hammes's was hard of the chains and it came back out and he was obviously visibly upset and you can understand that. These baskets, let's be honest, don't have the greatest reputation and we've seen some spit outs now and he goes up and he's super mad and he kind of throws his putter towards the base of the chains and it pops right back out again. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. And to his credit, at that point, he kept his cool. He dropped the disc in. He walked away. And, I think in seasons past, we might see Adam Hammes have a total blow up right there. And I think you could argue that him slamming the disc in is a bit of a blow up there. But it was like a freaky spit out. I don't even really know how it happened. It caught the bottom ring on the chains and it catapulted it back out. It's insane that it came back out.
It really was. But the other thing I want to remark, he was one of 10 players to then birdie hole 11 directly after. So takes this double bogey after the crazy spit out and then comes in and just birdies one of the hardest holes, a 484-foot wooded par 3, and one of 10, 15 players on the entire day to do so. So I think you're right. I think we should give some kudos to Adam Hammes that just drops it in, moves on, and was very clearly able to reset. And I think that bodes well for him. And being honest, 12 under versus 13 under, maybe he loses by 1 stroke. But I don't know how big of a difference that 1 putt is going to make. I think what's better, and I think more indicative and a positive sign for Adam Hammes is his ability to reset after what was truly a disaster.
All right, well, let's turn our attention over to FPO. And, it feels like it's starting to be Paige Pierce's weekend at this point. She has a 4-stroke lead. She's at 11 under through 2 rounds. She had the best round of the day at Mulligan. She shot 8 under par, and that was with 2 bogeys, including one on 18. She's 4 strokes ahead of Lisa Fakis and Katrina Allen, who were tied at 7 under. And then 2 strokes back of them is Kristen Tatar, who had a bit of a bumpy start today, but really picked it up, found the putting range towards the middle of the round, and ended up shooting 5 under par today. And so that's going to be your lead card for tomorrow. Paige Pierce,
Haley King also tied at 5 under.
Oh, thank you. The gap,
the little
on
ad,
the U-disc, you know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yep.
And Haley King was looking like she was in great position to be in kind of this deadlock heat with Paige Pierce up towards the top of the leaderboard, and took a brutal triple bogey on hole 15, where she went in the water trying to be aggressive to get to the green and never touched land, so she only got to advance a few feet, and then she went in the water again. Really tough to see. I mean, giving up 4 strokes on that hole to Paige Pierce, but managed to, stabilize, even though she then went on to, be in go OB again on the very next hole, but she saved the par, and then ended up birdieing 18, and that was a 2-shot swing in King's favor when Pierce bogeyed. So she's still in the mix. But I mean, let's ask the obvious question. Has Paige Pierce won this tournament yet? Do you think it's over?
I don't think it's over. She putted 50% from C1X. Granted, she made it up with 67% C2 putting today.
She's been just unbelievable from distance.
Yes. So is that sustainable? I don't know. Does she have a 50% putting round at the Fort? Maybe. If that's the case, does she fall back? Probably. Do I think she's going to do 50? Because I think she went 100% at Fort to 50% at Mulligan's. Quite the swing. If she does it again at the Fort, I could see it start to punish. But I will say our over-under bet was 7.5 strokes. And going through 2 days, she's already 4 under. So I wouldn't say that she's won it, but I'm feeling a little bit better about our bet.
I thought Katrina Allen played great today. I think, Katrina is going to just have to play better at the Fort. She was only even par in round 1 and then went 7 under today. And the thing that I think you got to feel good about if you're a Katrina Allen fan is that the putting looks pretty darn good. Yes. I mean, she still missed a couple, but she's making a lot of long putts. And not just from Circle 2. I'm talking about like the 30-footers that have been a real problem. And she had a number of those in today's round. And really just looked good all around. Was throwing the disc well, was, pinpointing greens. Had a 3-putt to take a bogey at one point, and then kind of got unlucky on 18, takes the bogey there as well. And it, could have been better. It's easy to imagine that she could have shot, maybe even 10 under, if a couple things go her way. And so I'm excited to see her get back out there at the Fort, because I think that she really does have the potential to get up there close to Pierce and make this thing interesting heading into the final round. I feel like I'd say the same thing about Kristen Tatar. Lisa Fakis, we'll see. I think there's no reason that the fact that she shot 7 under today at Mulligan's on a course that, she's not the longest thrower. And so she's able to match Katrina Allen, only 1 stroke worse than Pierce. That's a really good sign. Her putting looks fantastic. She was 100% from inside the circle, 40% from Circle 2. I think if she picks it up at the Fort, I think we could really see her be in contention for her first World Championship.
Completely agree. And I think the 100% Circle 1X putting, like you said, bodes well for her if she can settle in and keep using that putter well. On terms of Kristen Tatar, I'm not counting her out by any means. I think she's playing great. I think she's going to keep playing better as the weekend goes on, which should be something to worry the rest of the FPO field. But what I do want to note is Kristen Tatar is only putting 57% from C1X and 27% from C2. Not a pretty good C2 putting, not great C1X putting. But I think what's significant is she's going to fix that. Maybe not this tournament, but when she comes back and and it's open and COVID is passed and the European players are back, I think Kristen Tatar can fix that putting pretty quick. And the U.S. women should be terrified when she does. She cleans that up. She starts gaining if she gains 4 or 5 strokes back, if she just increases it up to, Katrina Allen numbers from today.
And she had some brutal misses too.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we're talking brutal, like 10, 15 footers that she just missed badly.
Yes.
It's not even like she has to start hitting the 30 footers. She actually looked pretty good from that distance. It's that, you can't miss the bunnies.
Yeah. Well, and I think that those, like you said, the bunnies, those are hard to replicate the pressure of at just practice rounds or C tiers. Those 15 footers don't have the same significance as they do at Worlds. And so it's like shooting a free throw in the regular season versus shooting them in the playoffs. It's completely different game. Let her get some more practice in, and she's going to get back to same numbers that she used to be. Kristen Tatar is still a world-class athlete and a world-class disc golfer.
World-class, no question. Throwing the disc, just great. I mean, very impressive. Found the green in regulation on most holes today at Mulligan's. And, clearly has more potential, more in the tank than we saw even today. And I do want to give a shout-out to someone who's on the lead card today, Sarah Gilpin. Shot 1 under today. Absolutely does not have the distance to truly compete on the Mulligan's course, but really played to her strengths and didn't try to do too much, and really is just a pinpoint thrower of the disc. Did not make many mistakes. Missed a couple putts. One cost her a bogey on 12, but, hanging out, and I expect to see her finish inside the top 10. I mean, she's got some good cushion. Kind of the rest of the field below Gilpin, she sits at -3, so she's 8 strokes back of Paige. The rest of the field is over par, and through 2 rounds. So, do any of those players even really have a chance at this point? I don't think so. And I think you're seeing some players that excelled in the woods drop back today. Some players that struggled in the woods made up some ground, like, Ella Hansen, Maria Oliva. But, if you can't handle both styles, you just don't really have a chance to win Worlds in this day and age.
Agreed. And I think the big thing for Sarah Gilpin is she didn't have any expectations. I mean, I don't know what her expectations were. I'd love to get a chance to talk to her this week. But I don't think a lot of people had expectations for her. So I think a top 10 finish is great. A top 5 finish is excellent. And if she knows that she can play well at the fort and that Mulligan's, she just needs to minimize damage, which I think 1 under, I think it's successful. If you look underneath in terms of the rounds, Owen Scoggins, Valerie Montejondo, both of those even and 2 over par respectively. But after that, just a string of, and I'm just going to read the round scores: 3 under, 1 under, 1 under, 4 under, 3 under, 3 under, 2 under, 1 under. I mean, you saw the big throwers who got really killed at the fort. All those players in 9th through 12th moved up on Mulligan's today. The problem is, though, they're still 4 strokes back from Sarah Gilpin, and they only get 1 more round at Mulligan's. So if Sarah Gilpin just continues to play her game, I think she could very easily find herself in really the top 10. I think a bad round from Lisa, Katrina, Kristen, or Haley all means Sarah Gilpin could find herself up in the top 5. It's not impossible.
Which would be quite an accomplishment.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now we've seen both divisions play both courses. What do you think of the courses in the World Championship setting?
I have a couple of thoughts. The first one was Emerson Keith on hole 15. 14. Hole 14. On hole 14, Emerson Keith was lining up a circle 2 putt. And as he's doing so, there is logs, best way to describe it, logs that he is having to pick up and move behind him to get footing on the edge of the green. I mean, he was only 40 feet out. And we talked a lot about this. And then right in front of him was a tree that had fallen that they had like chainsawed part of it and then just left it there. And I know we talked about obstructed greens, and I love obstructed greens. Calvin threw about 15 feet too far on hole 11 and did not have a clean putt. He was on a knee stretched all the way out to try and do this little Annie putt that he missed. I love those kind of greens. I think that it requires even more precision than ever. It challenges different styles of putting. It requires you to adapt and diversify. I love that. However, I think that those greens shouldn't be challenging because they're littered with deadfall. They had a long time to get ready for this tournament. And I know they weren't sure, in terms of like, is it going to happen? COVID was an uncertain time. It just looked, it looked bad though. Like the look, the aesthetics, the image of the course and thus the tournament just looked poor when I was watching Emerson Keith move logs and have a dead tree in front of him that was very clearly partially removed, but not fully. So, and I don't want to knock him too much because I know how much work goes into planning a major, but at the same time, it's also a major. And on Facebook, Eric Oakley was requesting help the day before to finish setting up the courses. I don't know. It just on terms of that kind of, I was a little disappointed, I guess is the best way to put it there.
I'm going to, we talked about the players, a little bit yesterday, talking about the courses, kind of harsh in the press conferences. Not a lot of players are big fans of these courses. Many of them said things like, I like the courses for what they are, but some have explicitly said, I don't think they're World Championships caliber. And this is being exacerbated by some concerns that players have about the logistics and operations of the tournament. So we didn't talk about this yesterday on the show, but we've had a chance now to talk to PDGA about it and kind of get some more context. Brody Smith paid $1,000 of his own money to rent out the rest of the driving range so that players could throw full, downrange warm-up tee shots at mulligans before their round, because the only option for players when they were showing up for MPO in round one was they had practice baskets and they had kind of netting areas where you could throw into a net. So you could warm up your body, but players often want to be able to throw full power shots in order to, watch the disc fly, feel comfortable about how it's flying that day, deal with the wind, those kinds of things that you can't really replicate by throwing into a net. Mm-hmm. And Brody basically went out of his way to make it possible. And then there's been this kind of just, let's be honest, it's been a PR fiasco for the PDGA, who then figured it out for the rest of the rounds. And they emailed players yesterday and said, we have the full range for the rest of the weekend, but this is just something that wasn't addressed before the tournament. And there's a lot of other little things, Josh, that players are upset by. Parking being a little bit of an annoyance for them. And we saw this on the broadcast today, there's not lines around many of the OB and hazards. And so there's questions about if there's grass growing in the sand trap, is that, and the disc is touching the grass, does that a penalty stroke or is it not? Or if it's in the water, but it's just it's in the water, but it's adjacent to the bank, just touching the bank, but in the water, is that in or not? It's not there's no string, there's no lines. And I think there's a growing sense of frustration from players about the way that PDGA events have been, particularly in comparison to Pro Tour events. And this is an ongoing theme. We have been hearing this all season. We've had players on this show talking about this all season. And it really feels like it's coming to a head this weekend because players are super frustrated with these elements. Not enough bathrooms. I've heard that from a couple players. And I think, we're at the point where it feels like something's going to give. Like something has to change. That we've already seen them, after with the U.S. Women's Paige and other players on social media expressing frustration about similar issues at U.S. Women's. And now we've got a similar story here at the World Championships. And that's not to say that people aren't working hard or that things, that it's not, still a really important tournament, but a lot of players are expressing that it's not to the same level of professionalism that they feel like is required in 2021. And there just seems like there's missed opportunities, that the PDGA is being kind of like told, hey, this thing is a problem, and they're not fixing it until it becomes a PR issue. So Brody has to go pay $1,000 of his own money, and then the problem gets fixed. Why didn't it just get fixed last week? Why did it not get fixed when somebody said something about it? This is confusing, and I think players are really getting frustrated, Josh.
I really want to have a debate and discussion after this tournament's over about the question of whether or not these courses are world championship class courses. Because I think what we've defined as world championship class courses are things that are designed to challenge a certain set of skills that these courses do not, and they challenge something unique. I think that there is a legitimate debate about the question of whether or not these courses should be world class. And I think you can find yourself on either side with a lot of evidence and compelling evidence as to why your side has some value and merit to it. That being said, I think that the problem is that you have in combination, because if maybe they say the courses aren't sufficient, but there's a world-class event being run with all the amenities, all the players are taken care of and feel like this has the weight and legitimacy of it. And I will say, like, hole 18, I think the presentation of it with the bleachers on the side and that, I think it was described on the broadcast as like a keyhole image of the finish at the end. It sets up well for a hole 18 Worlds. The problem 100%. Though is it looks like the PDGA in the tournament jumped to the finale without considering all the steps that they need to take to get there.
And you're just running into the fundamental problem that there's not necessarily tons of oversight leading up to the event from PDGA. And it's bid out, and the tournament the tournament organizers do things on their own for a long time. And then the PDGA comes in towards the end and has event staff on site, but these issues are not being addressed. And I'll say it plainly. Players are pissed. They're pissed. They're really pissed. Some of them will have spoken to me on the record about it. Others do not want to speak on the record about it, but will speak to me off the record about it. And it's just when the bar has been lifted up by what the Pro Tour has been doing in terms of professionalism of events, payouts, just the sense that they're really trying to focus on the players. I think that same sense is not coming through at Worlds. Players aren't feeling like they're being taken care of. And you can say what you want, whether you think that I think some people think the pros complain too much, but I don't think there's an excuse for not having lined OB. I don't. And I know it's a pain because they have, especially at Mulligan's, there's a ton of OB and you have all the traps and you have all the water and you got to do all the paint or the string and it's just a ton of work. But you have Paige Pierce saying in the middle of the round, I shouldn't have to be making the decision about whether or not this is in. And she's right. Mm-hmm. She's right. It's a small thing in the grand scheme of things. But when you have a lot of small things, it adds up to a big thing for players. And I just think there has to be a new focus on how this gets done in the future for PDGA, professional events. So obviously PDGA has a hand in thousands of tournaments a year, C tiers, B tiers, A tiers, etc. And they have a lot of important work to do besides just running the professional majors and the national tour events. But if they're going to keep doing them, and we've said this again and again, it has to improve. They need more oversight. They need more event staff. They need to hire new people to make sure that this stuff is done right and that the players are happy. So I hate to end it on a kind of like a downer note, but this has been like literally the thing people are talking about this week at Worlds. It's been the thing.
And there's one other thing that I want to add. And I think what I'm about to say is probably going to be a little bit controversial. Because there are going to be some people who think it's in good fun, it's funny, they like to see it based on how much they like the pro or not, that, whatever it is. I want to read a tweet thread, real quick, a Twitter thread. And the only reason I'm doing it is because this has been a pattern that we have PDGA members who have gone to social media and during the women's championship, for example, we had people telling Paige she shouldn't have gone to Hawaii. And one of those was a PDGA official who was doing that. PDGA tweets, or just before the tournament, player check-in 10-2 at the fort. Mulligans is closed to ball golfers. Reserve a tee time for practice rounds. Brody Smith responds, golfers with an asterisk. Now, if you follow social media, you'll know that Brody's hill that he's chosen to die on is that we don't call them ball golfers. They are just golfers. Regardless of where you fall in the debate and the semantics of that, I'm not really particular on. But the PDGA responds, sorry for the clarity. And Brody's response is, hey, I'm just glad that it took someone getting hit by a golf ball to reserve the course 2 days before the World Championships. These complaints cannot be addressed in quippy remarks on social media. I don't care how funny sorry for the clarity may seem. The PDGA, a professional, nonprofit organization designed around running and establishing the rules and very much the direction, at least they have been in the past, of disc golf and of the professional scene, cannot be using their social media in that manner when there are pros who are, like you said, pissed at the way they're running this tournament. And I think that it is noteworthy, I think it is newsworthy that the PDGA is using their platform to provide quippy responses and not solutions to some of the concerns and complaints of players. So maybe it's petty,
get it.
But I think that it is newsworthy given the atmosphere. If the players had been fine with this tournament, imagine if this tournament was running great, right? If there were no complaints and PDGA types ball golfers and Brody decides to quit back in good fun, then great. I don't care. Say it. But when you're on the burner, that's not the time for comedy. Sorry, I don't think it is. So maybe people aren't going to agree with me, but I think that not only do they need to use their power as an organization in order to run tournaments better, I think that they need to have their presentation of themselves better. Otherwise, they're going to have a lot of because they have a lot of really unhappy pros.
Twitter is Twitter. And you want to do a little clap back on Twitter? I got no problem with that. I mean, sorry for the clarity. Like, Brody's going to mix it up on Twitter. He's always stirring the pot. He goes on his Instagram and he stirs the pot. He goes on his Twitter and he stirs the pot. He has he does have the hill that he wants to die on about the golfers thing, which whatever. I don't really care one way or the other about that.
Sure.
But then when the response from Brody is like an actual thing that is an actual criticism about the actual event, and then he ends up having to reserve the course himself with his own money. It does look bad, and it is an optics problem. And really, there's a thing. It's not that it's just an optics problem. It's an actual problem. This is Worlds.
Yeah.
A net's not enough. I know maybe that's how it's been done in the past. And at a B tier, nobody's going to complain about only having a net. But at Worlds, why wouldn't you just rent out the whole golf course?
Yeah.
You can. It's simple. They did it. It's done. It costs a little money. Okay, no big deal. The PDGA has $4 million in the bank account or whatever it is, and growing fast, which is amazing. This is an incredible opportunity. And they've got to meet the professional scene where it's at.
Mm-hmm.
It's that simple. So let's enjoy the rest. I don't want to come back to this topic. We're not coming back to it for the rest of the week, okay? We'll talk about it again later if we need to, but we're going to focus on the golf for the rest of the way. And I'm really excited. Courses, division switching courses again, heading into tomorrow. Are you more excited to see FPO back in the Fort or MPO at Mulligan's?
FPO at the Fort. Absolutely. I think that's when we're going to see, are those who made the gains at Mulligan's going to stay at the top? If not, I think we get a clear leaderboard of who's going to be in contention. And honestly, I really think that if that becomes the case and we get some separation at the Fort, whoever comes out on top in round 2 of the Mulligans, so let's say Paige, Lisa, and Katrina are the only ones at the top after the Fort tomorrow, I think Mulligan's is truly going to be the decider and may be the separator to the point that that leader may no longer be able to be caught coming into round 5. So I think FPO tomorrow feels like moving day for FPO, and that's why I'm excited to watch that one.
Paige is too good at Mulligans for you to really pick up a lot of strokes. Maybe you get 1 or 2. If you have an amazing, let's say Katrina has just a superb round and shoots 10 under. That's still only 2 strokes. So you have to keep pace with Paige Pierce tomorrow in FPO. You have to. If you don't, if you fall back, it's over.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, yes, you never know. She could hit a million trees and take a quadruple bogey on one hole, but you really don't expect that. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think we're going to see her make a mistake of the magnitude that she made on 18 in round 1, where she took a double bogey after going out of bounds. So I think you got to make your push tomorrow. If you're Lisa Fakis, Katrina Allen, Kristen Tatar, Haley King, maybe Sarah Gilpin, and if you can at least keep pace, you're gonna have a shot. If you lose strokes to Paige tomorrow, it's gonna be real tough sledding trying to catch her.
If Paige feels no pressure going into mulligans, it's over. You're not gonna touch her.
We'll see what happens. Of course, in MPO, I mentioned the FPO lead card once again. Paige Pierce, Lisa Fakis, Katrina Allen, Kristen Tatar. MPO lead card is Emerson Keith, Calvin Heimberg, Paul Macbeth, and James Conrad. But don't forget that there's another 5 players at 15 under who are not on the lead card to match Macbeth and Conrad at 15 under. So you're going to have to be watching 3 cards deep tomorrow, at least in MPO. So going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait to follow along with all the action. And we will be back here with you tomorrow on Thursday. We're going to put a timeout on social media, and we would love to have you come in and listen to the show live. We're going to be recording it, and you can have the opportunity to jump in and join us with a live call-in. So get your questions ready, get your thoughts ready as you watch the coverage tomorrow. We probably will not be starting until at least 7 p.m. Mountain Time, 9 p.m. Eastern. So again, social media, check it for a timestamp when we're going to go on the air. And Josh, we'll be doing it together in person. How about that?
I know. I'm excited. It'll be good to meet you in person, Charlie.
Hell yeah. So Josh and I are going to meet for the first time as he comes down to Ogden. And just want to say thank you so much for tuning in. For Josh Mansfield, I'm Charlie Eisenhood saying so long. And we'll talk to you tomorrow here on the Upshot.